Hello, happy Friday indeed, everyone. My name is Amherst Williams. I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut League of History Organizations, and I want to welcome you all to another CLHO Colleague Circle. This week, we have what seems to be a very popular topic on programming outdoor spaces, to think a little bit together about some of the creative ways that organizations are utilizing their outdoor spaces in general, and also in particular during the COVID crisis, and the ways in which outdoor spaces can serve an important function during the pandemic. If you haven't already, take a moment to find the chat feature in Zoom. You can move your mouse around to find the Zoom controls and click on chat. It'd be great if you can take a moment to just introduce yourself to everybody so we can have a sense of who's here from around the state. I know we have about 70 people signed up for this session, so it'll be great to know where everyone is coming from, and good for our panelists as well. And I will apologize in advance for not being able to welcome you all one by one, as I have been, as people have been coming in at the beginning. Rest assured, we're really happy to have you with us here today. And I'm sure you all are happy to be here too, and to have power and internet back in this crazy time. One other request is just to keep your audio and video muted while our panelists are speaking, and we can open things up a little bit more during the Q&A afterwards. And I will be monitoring the chat for any questions that come up as our presenters are speaking. But the point of these colleague circles is to really launch a discussion. So that's really the focus here. And we'll have time for a more interactive Q&A using the chat, and also being able to speak later on in the session. If you have any questions, just shoot them to me in the chat, and we'll get going. I want to thank you all and welcome our panelists. I'm going to stop my screen share for a second here, and introduce who we have with us here today. So a special thanks go out to Briann Greenfield, who organized this session for us today. She is the Executive Director of the Harriet Beecher Stowe Center. We also have with us David Rao, the Director of Education and Outreach at Florence Griswold Museum, and a familiar face to all of you who have been participating in CLHO Summer School as well. And also Laurie Masciandaro, who's the site manager at Roseland Cottage, part of Historic New England's properties. And they'll be talking more. So I think we're going in that order. Briann, David, and Laurie are each going to share a little bit about what they're doing at their sites. And then we'll open things up for a Q&A. So I'm going to hand things over to Briann. Kick us off.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Ernest, for this invitation, and thanks to David and Laurie for joining me. This is just a fun opportunity to hear so much about what all of you are doing out there in the field too. So I'm excited to have this conversation. And with that in mind, I'll keep my opening comments brief, because I think that this should be conversationally focused. So I thought I would start, I think, to say that in this COVID moment, outdoor spaces have taken really new importance to us. I think that for us as institutions, but also in our daily lives, that outdoor spaces have become safe spaces to connect with people 6 feet apart. They've become respite from the inside of our houses, where we're doing so much of our work lives as focus, as well as our family lives as intermingled. And the outdoor spaces are providing really important avenues for us to build our social networks and have some respite as well. And so in thinking about how we as cultural institutions, as historical institutions, can make those spaces as accessible as possible, I wanted to share one example of what the Stowe Center has been doing this year in its outdoor space. As you know, we are situated in Hartford, toward the west end of Hartford in the Asylum Hill neighborhood, and we share really a historic neighborhood with the Mark Twain House, and the two houses together do make a beautiful park-like campus. And the Stowe Center has done a tremendous job of interpreting the house. All that work was done before my arrival a couple years ago, and I think that we had been, as an organization, starting to think about how we could layer on other parts of the experience of visiting the Stowe Center, and the grounds was a natural one. And in this sort of pre-COVID thought process about recognizing our grounds, which includes, of course, our historic gardens, which are beautiful for so much of the year. We were also looking for ways to connect some of our other programming. Every year we do a Stowe Prize, which is an award to an author who's writing in the tradition of Uncle Tom's Cabin. And on a social justice issue and a contemporary social justice issue. And this year, our winner is a man named Albert Woodfox, who's winning the Stowe Prize for his memoir, which is called Solitary, on his 40 years of solitary confinement for a crime he did not commit. And that's a powerful and important subject matter. It was a choice that we made before COVID, before kind of the global racial awakening that we're experiencing in this post George Floyd moment as well, but one that was very much in line with the mission of the Stowe Center. This book award has often been presented, or part of the program has always been on the Stowe campus, part of the award ceremony. And as we were doing research about what made the award process so powerful, is we often heard about the fact that it was on the Stowe campus. And I have a number of my colleagues here, Beth Burgess and Laura Langer, and I think Amy Huffnagel is with us as well. We have so many people on the screen, I can't see them all at once. But my colleagues, and under Amy's leadership, proposed a garden project, an outdoor project, to connect the outdoor space and the Stowe Center campus to this book award winner. And I'm going to share my screen now with you to show this outside project. Let's see if I can do that, which of course, give me just another second to make that happen. There we go. I think everybody can see that now. Is that visible? Great. So this is an artist's design installation called The Solitary Garden. It was designed by the artist Jackie Summel, who is a friend of Albert Woodfox, our award winner. And the concept of this garden is that it's a raised bed which is in the size and shape of a solitary confinement chamber. So it allows someone to visually understand the constraints of the space that Albert Woodfox lived in for 40 years. At the same point, it is not intended to, take that experience in and of itself. What it looks to do is transform it. And so it's the size and shape, but it opens up the solitary confinement chamber to the sky. It repopulates it with flowers. So it's a transformative experience, unlike the solitary confinement chamber itself, and really unlike the conceit of much of our American penal system, which is not about transformation or reform, but really solidly in a punishment framework. This garden too, we really thought about the ways that it connected Stowe's story to the contemporary moment. And Jackie Summel's work very specifically draws on the history of slavery that Stowe was fighting against as well. And so if I'm really good on my sharing, which is going to take me a second, am I still sharing that new picture? Oh, you should be seeing a detail of the solitary confinement, or the solitary garden. And this detail shows some of the lime mixture, which makes the frame of the solitary garden. It is a mixture which includes—
Briann, I'm just going to jump in here.
Yep.
We're still seeing the original photo right now.
Okay, thank you for saying that. Good, good. Let me then maybe stop my share and go back to share. Sharing now?
Yep.
Great. So now we've got the detail of the solitary garden. The framework of the garden includes lime and indigo, cotton, and tobacco. So the largest agricultural crops of the slave economy of the 19th century. And those were used to create the frame of the garden and to the furnishings of the solitary confinement chamber, the toilet, the desk, and also the bed in it as well. And those were mixed with lime from Lime, Connecticut, one of the oldest lime quarries in the country, to make that. And the artist Jackie someone calls this revolutionary mortar. Again, this sort of sense of change and transition and transformation. And then finally, the flowers that we chose to put in the garden under Jackie's direction were garden flowers that were, again, thinking about this long history. They include flowers from Stowe's garden, flowers that were included in Stowe's description of Uncle Tom's Cabin in the book, as well as medicinal herbs for healing. And the Stowe Prize winner, Albert Wood Fox, was also consulted. One of his suggestions was he wanted there to be something someone could eat if they wanted a snack. And so there's a tomato plant in it as well. So it has a sense of whimsy and transformation in it as well. And so this has been a way for us to represent the book visually, which has been really, really important for us. It's provided us with opportunities with the press, a really nice spread in the Hartford Courant, a really wonderful piece from WTNH, because it allowed us to talk about the book award and represent it in new ways as possible. It also was an opportunity to invite people to campus in a time when the House Museum itself is closed, and that is included to the design of a new garden guide that visitors can access on our website and also at the site, so that opening up our space and inviting people with this project, which again was conceived in pre-COVID, but is really taken on new importance and new meaning. So thanks for letting me share this project with you.
Go ahead, David.
All right. Well, thanks, Briann. That sounds like a fantastic project. Very exciting. So I'm David Rao from the Florence Griswold Museum, which is a 12-acre campus in Old Lyme. We're situated along the Lieutenant River. And so we've always considered our mission to encourage, to include art, history, and nature. And so, as of, in recent months, our natural world has become even more important. So the museum opened up a new artist trail last summer, and it's a pathway that circumnavigates our property, and it allows people to walk along the water, the river walk. It allows people to walk up the hedgerow, through the gardens, and then we have a small wooded area we call the Woodland Walk. And so we made the commitment when we closed on March 14th to keep the campus open and available to the public. We encourage them, of course, to visit safely and to be mindful of other groups visiting. But we immediately put out, we have a visitor guide that includes a map and information about the artist trail. There are little wood posts on the campus, and so it lines up to the numbers in the guide. We made sure we had these posted at every entrance in those like little, those real estate boxes, so that people could arrive and pick this up. It's also on the website, and I'll share a link in the chats. But we wanted people to feel really welcome, even though our buildings were closed. It was such an odd time to close up our campus. We also started to think of other ways that we could accommodate people as we reopened. And we reopened in the beginning of July, and we have a lot of safety protocols in place, a lot of signage about wearing masks and keeping socially distant. But over the summer, we invited back a yoga instructor who does yoga on the grounds. And it was easy to have her students wearing masks and keeping the yoga mats 6 feet apart. And it was just lovely to see them out under the trees. You could say it was a beautiful, serene place and a really good thing for them to do. And so a lot of folks, it's an easy option for people that have really beautiful grounds. And people came whether it was super hot or if it was just lovely. They just really got committed to loving doing yoga on the grounds. We also, we often give out art supplies on weekends for people to make a painting, but we knew we couldn't use our regular tools over and over again because we didn't want to, have cross-contamination. So we, decided to make these kind of craft bags using a Ziploc bag. We filled it with sketchbooks and colored pencils. And then we also did a quick art lesson on how to paint a landscape. And we just sell those for a nominal charge when people stop in. And people have to reserve 24 hours in advance to visit the museum. But if they just stop by and happen to want to just do the gardens, they can still purchase, one of the sketch bags. We even put in a branded water bottle for, to boot. Some other things that we wanted to do to engage people with our campus is we decided to make a scavenger hunt. And again, they pick up one of these, "Can you find me?" From one of those real estate dots. And all of these were just taken from my iPhone, walking around the campus. Some of them are really easy. Some of them are kind of challenging. But again, with a little time on the computer and then on the Xerox, this is something free for people to engage and really use the outdoor spaces. This was also pre-COVID, but it's coming in to be really handy, is we are working with a nature therapist who does forest bathing. Forest bathing is a Japanese concept where you walk slowly through nature. There are a lot of kind of prompts to make you slow down and, control your breathing and take in all the things that the trees can offer. And, we're doing that once a month to see how popular it is. And I just checked in with tomorrow's forest bathing and, we've doubled the attendance from our previous one. So I think it's catching on. Just a few other things that I want to point out that are coming up at the museum. We have Farm Day. This is again something we had scheduled because we have some paintings of animals in our current show, Fresh Fields. And so we invite a farm down from Canterbury to bring their animals so that our visitors can actually see them and paint them. But again, in this new world, they're going to be offered sketchbooks or they can bring their own supplies. Again, we're always inviting artists and families to bring their own supplies just so that they're not handling a bunch of stuff, trying to keep everybody as safe as possible. And then the last big thing I want to share, the museum really invests a lot of time and energy in our October project called We Fairy Village. That's something we've done for 11 years now, and it's an outdoor event where artists have installed fairy houses all throughout the property. So we kind of have a win-win here because it's already an outside activity. So we're going to go full speed ahead with this year's Fairy Village, although we do have to find ways to control how many people visit so that it'll be safe and that people will wander kind of in, safe pods, as it were. This year's theme is Follywoods, awesome wee fairy architecture. So I'm looking at people will be walking along the artist trail, and just like beautiful parks in England, they'll see this very curious structure out on the lawn and visit one after the other. We have about 30 artists participating, so it should be pretty great. So most of these things are transferable to other locations, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody, via email or a phone call, and I'll put some contact information, in the chat feature. But again, thank you for having the Florence Griswold as part of this. We love participating, but we also are so proud of our campus and our grounds, and we just love to see people there. This morning, the garden gang was there getting all the gardens gussied up for this weekend. So if you get a chance, do stop by. And now I'll turn this over to Laurie.
Thanks, David. I can tell I'm going to have to make a trip down to Old Lyme because I want to do some forest bathing. So thank you for mentioning that. My name is Laurie Masciandaro. I'm the site manager at Historic New England's Rosen Cottage. And one of the things that we have at Rosen that's really important to us and we're very proud of is our historic garden. It's something that has been in place really for 170 years. We felt it was really important to share this with the public. As a historic organization, we wanted to provide a sense of continuity and calm for this area, and people have relied on being able to come and visit the garden for decades. So we certified as an outdoor museum so that we could open June 20th as an outdoor museum. And I want to share, we put a lot of signage out, and let me share one of our signs. Would that work? No. We take mask wearing and social distancing and all those things very seriously. I hope you do too. We also at times share in a more subtle way. I'll show you. Well, can you see my more subtle sharing there? We do, and we do have to remind people sometimes they must wear masks and all those things. But as I say, we take it very seriously. My volunteers, we have a lot of volunteers at Rosen. Some of them act as guides, and I wasn't comfortable having them lead tours inside the house, even though we've taken a lot of precautions and reduced our tour size to 4 people. Most of them are have something that makes them high risk for one reason or another, but they all really wanted to stay connected to Rosen Cottage and the property here. And so they came up with the idea of doing outdoor tours. We do them twice a week. They've become quite popular. There is no prescribed content for the tours. It depends on what the visitors are interested in. We limit them, by the way, to 6 people. And what the guide's particular area of expertise is. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Rosen Cottage. We're a Gothic revival house that has really a lot of architectural interest. And we've got a lot of outbuildings that we don't get to talk about very often. We don't, on our regular tours, get to address the Gothic aspects of the house with very much depth. So this is an opportunity to come see the house from a whole different perspective, a whole different view. It's something that's been very popular, very successful. My guides love it. I love it. The visitors love it. I think we'll actually continue it once we're out of all of this. Keep our fingers crossed. I'm sure that day will come. Historic New England is an organization that has several historic properties throughout New England, and I thought I'd share with you also what one of our other properties is doing during this period. Some of you may be familiar with the Beauport House in Gloucester. It's right on Gloucester Bay. It's a magnificent property if you haven't seen it. After you come to Rosen Cottage, you should go visit Beauport. They have a terrace that is right on Gloucester Bay. It's very private. So what they are doing is on days when the museum isn't open, they are allowing people to hold private picnics on the terrace there. It's not inexpensive. At first, it was opened up only to our bigger donors who could rent the space. Then we decided to open it up to anybody who wanted. And in fact, if you do rent the space, a membership in Historic New England is included. But it's been very popular. If I lived closer, I certainly would be doing it. But it's something that maybe some of the properties that you have would lend themselves to. We can't do it at Rosen. We just don't have that kind of private space. But I think it's a great place, a great idea for places that do have that kind of private space. The last thing I wanted to mention is that putting our garden in, immediately when all this happened, I bet most of our museums shared this, and most of the organizations that you represent. We were very worried about finances, so we cut back. The word went out, don't spend any money. We didn't prune our hedge, which we do every year. We cut back in any way that we could possibly cut back, except putting in our garden. As I said before, we felt it was really important to provide that continuity for the community here. So we went ahead with the 6,000 annuals that we usually put in. It's a substantial expense. We put it in, it's beautiful, and it occurred to me that it might be a good vehicle to use for fundraising locally. So I sent out emails and letters, and it's been very, very successful in that people, they see that we're doing a service for the community. The money stays here at Rosen Cottage. People can come and enjoy it themselves. So it's been a very successful fundraiser. It also has added a lot of local donors to our fundraising roles, which is something I don't want to say we struggle with, but it's something we are always interested in increasing, are the local donors. We're a New England-wide organization. We get visitors from all over the world, but we really would like to have that kind of local support, and this is one thing that's helped it. So again, thank you for including me, and that's it.
Great. Well, thank you all. These are great, inspiring stories and creative ways to think about our outdoor spaces. So I want to open things up to a more general discussion since we have a bunch of people here. I'm sure that we have, oh, and David's answered all of the questions that have come in for him so far. $6 craft bags, everybody. If you're interested in the price point for making your own. You know, I would definitely encourage those of you who are here for the meeting, you know, I think we're only at 25 people. So if you have any experiences that you want to share from your own organization, we'd love to hear about what you've been doing. Just raise your hand or pop a note into the chat. I'd particularly be interested in hearing from places that maybe previously haven't done a lot with their outdoor spaces. We've heard from 3 organizations who have sort of substantial grounds and think about their grounds already as a part of what they interpret. But I'd especially be interested in hearing from anybody who's had a slightly different experience of trying to think about how they might utilize an outdoor space that they haven't perhaps been mobilizing in that way before. I don't know if anybody has anything to say. I mean, one of the things that was interesting to me in hearing you guys speak is thinking a little bit about how COVID has sort of given you some things that you think may last beyond the pandemic period. And I don't know if anyone of you wants to speak a little bit more to some of the things that you think are going to endure out of this moment for your organization?
Well, you know, at the Florence Griswold Museum, we always had Can You Find Me kits, and we always did them with like little laminated cards that we had on rings that people would carry around. But we just realized that, you know, that is kind of a germ factory. And so in one of our early meetings, we said, well, why can't we make these as to go? You know, temporary use. And, you know, although, you know, you do worry a little bit about, you know, the other ones were nice because you could use them over and over again, but now we also realize how germs get spread. So we have made the scavenger hunt for the outside spaces, but now that we've reopened, we're using the same method for inside. So we have a disposable, take it away with you scavenger hunt for the house, and a take it away with you scavenger house for our current exhibition, Fresh Fields. And another thing, I mean, really retooling what we do. Very often our exhibitions, we want to give visitors the opportunity to talk back. And so usually we have a sticky notepad with Post-its, and they write it up and they put it up. But we realize that, again, a lot of touching. And so in this instance, we now put up empty Post-its in the talkback wall every day. And we have these little pencils that they use. And then we have a box that says, please dispose of, or, you know, we'll wash these pencils later, but, you know, drop them in. And in surveys, people have really responded that they notice those extra elements of care, whether they're inside or outside. If the museum demonstrates that they're trying to do things differently, safely, really mindful of the visitor safety, they have, you know, in these surveys, they've responded that they noticed the pencil box and they noticed all these little details. So whatever you can do to be really outward looking to say, we want you to hear, but we want you to be as safe as possible, they do take notice. And they mark it in the survey that they enjoy their time better because they really felt safe. It's so important.
One thing that we're doing, it doesn't relate to our outdoor spaces, but it's something I think we'll continue doing throughout all of our historic New England properties. We require reservations now for tours, which we've never done before. And we've all discovered, the 6 houses that are open in historic New England have discovered that that is really a wonderful thing, to know what to expect, to have everybody's information, because when they register online, they have to fill out all of the information that we would require to do contact tracing. It's really wonderful to have all that information already done. Nobody has to fill out anything on site. I agree with David that, boy, the public really responds when they see all the care that has gone into making a safe experience for them. And we get almost everybody who comes thanks us for being open and for providing it, because everybody has been cooped up for so long. They really enjoy the opportunity to get out and do something and feel safe at the same time that they're doing it. We'll continue, as I said before, the outdoor tours, which maybe we do every other year as a big program, but I think we'll continue them on the more informal basis, though you still have to register for them. And probably some of the other protocols that we've put in place, some of the wiping off of stuff inside the house. The handrail is the only thing anybody can touch in the house going upstairs, but we wipe it off between every tour. Some of those things will stick, probably because this is making a big impression on us. I think it's going to be hard to go from just, you know, not worrying about somebody slobbering on you to going back to, it's going to be a hard transition to make, and I think it will stick with a lot of us. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the cleaning protocols and things that we put in place stick with us, perhaps beyond when they're necessary, but you know, I'm not the one who's going to say when they're no longer necessary.
Laurie, your comments about, you know, registration and collecting people's information, and as well as the idea of having people reserve space to be able to have an outdoor picnic on the property. I wondered if other sites have been, in a way, doing more small scale reservations on their sites than, you know, big tent and wedding rentals. I had noticed, I don't know if anybody's here from Webb Dean Stevens, but I thought I saw a really interesting post that they were doing elopement weddings now, and kind of loved that as an idea of more easily accessible, less fuss, no tent, but here, come use the space for something really important. So just open up if anybody had seen any other interesting drop-in sort of material opportunities like that.
Yeah, it looks like we have one question from GB about, and this is, I think, for the group as a whole, everyone who's here. Has anyone done any of these drive-by type visits? And if so, what's your experience with that? Any drawbacks or benefits to that sort of activity? I don't know if anyone on our panel has done anything like that, but I'd certainly open it up to the group. Kevin, you seem to be doing some stuff in Simsbury. Do you want to bring yourself up and share a little bit more about what you've been doing there?
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, well, I did post it off now that you've burned out my fingers. But, you know, we have a 2-acre site in the center of Simsbury, so we kind of act as the town green.
Mm-hmm.
But we have 10 different historical buildings. And, you know, people have always been welcome to walk around our grounds. But, you know, we have little signs on the near the buildings that explains their history. And we also have great gardens. We have a group of master gardeners that use our site to develop their gardening skills or show off their gardening skills. So we have great gardens. This year, Simsbury, if you haven't been to Simsbury already, this is our second time we've had the Seward Johnson statues. They're lifelike statues, and they're spread out. There's 37 of them spread out throughout town. We have 4 on our site, and one of them is the Yes We Can statue with Rosie the Riveter. And it's on our site next to one of our industrial buildings. So people are already walking through town, and there's a map of those. And so our grounds are, you know, have a lot of people walking through it because of the statues. The other thing that we're doing that wasn't really COVID related, but it works in well, was last year we built a wigwam, and this year we're adding a new display, and we might do more of this depending on the success. So we're buying a new shed. It's a wood shed, so it has an open side from Cloder Farms, and we will put plexiglass across it. And then inside is a display. We have a primitive archaeologist who is making us reproduction Native American fishing equipment. So we have, he's made nets and a canoe, a burned out canoe, fishing spears, so a bunch of things, and we will make that into a diorama with, paint the inside with a scene, a river scene, and so people will actually be able to come by and see that as an outdoor exhibit. It's it's kind of like going to the Peabody Museum where you had the little dioramas, but they're all in one big hall. Ours will be outdoors, so you can just walk by it instead of having to go inside. If that's successful, we may do a little bit more of those kind of things in the future.
Oh, that's great, Kevin. Thank you so much for sharing. I love the idea of an outdoor diorama. That sounds like a kind of a flexible sort of a kind of exhibition that you could do for outdoor interpretation. Heather from South County Museum wants to share a little bit about what they've been doing around mini monies. I hadn't heard that term before, and fresh air exhibits. Heather?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. All right. So technically we're in Rhode Island, but thank you for welcoming me into your club. So at the South County Museum, we're located in Narragansett, Rhode Island. And maybe you've been by, we have an 8-acre campus. And what we've been offering like today, and we've actually had, I think, our best day so far, is a fresh air exhibits. So at the moment, our Met's exhibit hall, which has many of our items in it, in that type of setting, is closed. But the Living History Farm with our animals is open, as well as our blacksmith forge, the carriage barn, the one-room schoolhouse, and the automobile center. So they're able to walk by. We do generally have only staff members out to answer questions. We have had some volunteers and older staff that are very concerned about being open and very hesitant about being open. Our weddings are truly one of the ways that we have our revenue model, and unfortunately most of them have been postponed. But we have started to offer mini monies. And yeah, people are looking for the opportunity to still get married, enjoy, take the photos, and then maybe go to a more private setting for a small celebration for dinner. And so I do recommend that, particularly with beautiful gardens like some of you have. It's been fabulous. We did decide very consciously to offer free admission during COVID. We really believe that everyone needs the ability to step back into the past for a few minutes. We are seeing many families. We've always gotten multiple generations visiting us, but they're really just looking for an outlet to get out. Financially, though, it's going to increase our concerns by offering free admission. So I can say that it's been something our board had talked about a great deal, about maybe always being free in order to improve access for all. But I can say that this documents that we could not afford to do that. So fresh air exhibits are great. Come by and visit us if you can.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing, Heather. Really appreciate it. It's nice to see you. Yeah, I know we have some people from other sites here today who have outdoor spaces. I don't know if anybody else is interested in sharing what you're doing at your organization, or anyone has any additional questions about things they're thinking about, or ways that this can be a helpful session to you as you're thinking about, sort of how to mobilize your outdoor spaces, or maybe you're from an institution that doesn't really have a lot of space outdoors. Have you been thinking about doing something drive-by in the way that GB was asking about earlier? What are the sorts of things that that you want, that we can help you with as a group, as a network? Okay, and GB has a follow-up question about if anyone knows where you could maybe rent large-scale plexiglass, or where you could get it at an inexpensive rate. Anybody got a good source on the plexiglass? I imagine this is a material that's in high demand right now. If so, please put it in the chat to GB. Oh, Maggie has hand up. Maggie,
Hi.
go ahead.
Hi, can everyone?
Hi.
see me? Hi. I came into the session a little bit late, so I'm sorry, but I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm Maggie Dimick. I'm the curator for collections and exhibitions at the Greenwich Historical Society. And I had kind of a bit of a question, which, or maybe just sort of, it's a little bit of a question couched in sort of sharing, I guess, a little bit of our experience that I thought might be worth just sort of bringing out here. So we, on our site, we, for many, many years, we're the chief interpreters of the Bush Holly House, which is a 18th century house, which was originally home to the Bush family, and we sort of interpret that 18th and early 19th century history, and then also what we call the art colony period, which is when that house was home to the Cos Cob American Impressionist art colony. For years, that's been really our focus, but very recently, in the last 2 years, we've opened a new museum and visitor center. We have a lot, expanded gallery spaces, and a much expanded site, really. So right now, I mean, we're like a lot of people kind of trying to thread that needle about what is it that can we offer to the public. Our house tours, which are really heavily docent led, are really off the table for the time being, just because of impossibility of social distancing. Our exhibition galleries are open right now, with advanced reservations. And we've been seeing this huge uptick in interest in people coming and sort of informally picnicking on our site and in our gardens. We've also been experimenting with offering a new volunteer-led or docent-led outdoor tour, which again is new for us, and it's an opportunity to sort of share different stories and kind of customize it among our docents. The question I have, and I wonder if there's anyone else that's in this situation, I think what would already be kind of a natural focus on our landscape, having this new site, but also the reality of the situation we're in now, we're really faced with realizing like we need to augment our staff. We, for years and years, have had a really great, what we call green team of volunteer gardeners, and a site manager who's sort of overseen. We have a historic kind of heritage vegetable garden that's planted based on diaries that were kept by Elmer McCrae, one of the folks who lived in the Holly House. But we're in a position where we know we want to kind of have our gardens shine a little bit more. So we're kind of developing right now our dream for bringing on really a dedicated gardens coordinator. And I know a lot of folks who've spoken today and maybe who are on this call either have somebody like that on your staff or have maybe been in a position to want to create a role like that. And I wondered if anyone could just share some kind of free-form advice or ideas or things that have worked for you in building a role like that.
We have at Roseland, despite the fact that we have a giant garden, we have a part-time gardener who takes care of it with lots of volunteers who help her. But I know a lot of other extensive gardens in the state have the local garden club that takes care of the garden. And if, many of them are perfectly capable of doing it themselves. We want to keep ours to a certain historical era. So we need somebody we couldn't just turn it over to a garden club. We would need somebody like our gardener or somebody with that knowledge base to be able to structure what they do. But I do know that many of the gardens around use local garden clubs who are really oftentimes very enthusiastic about helping.
I see that my colleague Beth Burgess is on, and Beth coordinates our garden work, which is done through different levels of volunteers. So Beth, if you wanted to say a little bit about how we manage that. Sorry.
Oops. Sorry, sure. Apologies for the background. I didn't know it was going to be on screen. Yeah, we're using volunteers, really dedicated volunteers, and our plans from 1968 as our guidelines. So we do have groups who come in 3 to 4 times a year to help do major cleanups, but for the most part, it is individual volunteers. we have to stick very true to our plans in order to keep the historic status, right? And be a member of Connecticut Historic Gardens as well. So yeah, we do really well in that function, in that way.
So that's really interesting that the guidelines of the plans have been what's really enabled you to coordinate along those levels with volunteers, because it's, oh, my cat was just trying to get into and I was pushing her down. You probably all saw that tail going up. But that's been a really organizing principle that's been useful. Yes. Because otherwise it can be pretty difficult on conversations with volunteers about what to plant.
What's okay and what's not okay. Yes.
Yeah.
But it's also budgetary, right? There are layers within that. We try our best, right?
Yeah.
At the Florence Griswold Museum, we've always had a garden coordinator, but we make sure, and they're, on staff, but they are usually a master gardener. So they really come with a lot of knowledge. And we find that the volunteers don't mind trading their sweat equity for some really good information about how to prune, when to plant. And so it's kind of a nice trade-off. So our garden gang comes every Friday morning. They were really desperate to get back. When we were closed, it was still an outdoor space, but we really worried about having them come together too soon. But we did make the decision midsummer to have them come back. Again, they work fully masked. They work socially distanced in the garden, which is a natural activity. But we also have them do a self-check health screening every day. So we have a record of who's coming on campus and that, what their health status was prior to coming on, just, for our protection and their protection and each other's protection. So it's just something to think about that, we're still trying to keep track of, managing the people that visit our campus in a smart way, hopefully smart way.
Great, and we also have Laurie from the Gertrude Jekyll Garden, who has put something in the chat for you, Maggie. So hopefully, even if we haven't fully answered your question, you have a few connections and people you might be able to follow up with as you, if you're able to craft this position. And when you're ready to list it, let us know and we'll put it on our website.
Can I address a question that I saw
Sure.
pop up in the chat about, somebody asked about outdoor fundraisers. And normally at Rosen, we have an outdoor fundraiser that we call Party at the Pink House. Those of you who know what Rosen looks like understand the title. We can't do it this year. We just can't bring that many people together safely, we don't feel. So we're doing it online, which is, and I know there have been a lot of online fundraisers. What we're doing via Zoom is anybody who registers will send via Amazon some kind of pink article to make your background with. And we'll have a contest for the pinkest mood. We'll play pink Connecticut trivia. I'll do a live tour through the house. We're still developing it. It's in about a month, but we just didn't feel safe bringing people here. So rather than an outdoor fundraiser, we're trying to make a fun fundraiser online, and people have been registering for it, which is really nice to see. And part of our pitch is also, even if you don't want to come to our online fundraiser, donate during these difficult times. And people are responding to that, I find. They do want to help us, so. Anyway.
Yeah, on that point, I don't know, I see we have Megan here from Hillstead. I seem to remember you guys might be doing some outdoor things. Is that correct? Would you be willing to share a little bit about what you're doing there? I don't know if you're available, Megan.
Sure. I'll just stop stuffing my face with lunch. Yeah, so we have about 150 acres, and if you've been to Hillstead, we have that, it's called the West Lawn, and it's where we hold a lot of our weddings right in the front, and there's the veranda there. And so what we've been doing are small, intimate farm-to-table dinners, and we're having about 5 or 6 of them. I think we were supposed to have 6, but 2 of them were canceled, one because of weather and one because of low attendance. And they're max 75 people, small tables. So everyone kind of buys their tickets, and then they sit in tables with people that they usually request to sit with. So it's people that they're comfortable sitting with. We found that a lot of people are actually buying a full table and then filling it with people that they are comfortable with. And then we are working with Chef Tyler Anderson from Millwrights. So he's bringing his full staff. He's got a very fancy food truck doing all the cooking. And so they're adhering to all of the same like restaurant guidelines, masks, gloves, everything like that. Coming in, cooking the food there, and then serving everyone at the table. Everyone follows the same guidelines as if they were at a restaurant. They don't have to wear their mask at the table, but as soon as they leave the table, they wear a mask. And we have an online auction. So we have a small table set up with a few kind of display items, but then all of the actual physical things are mostly digital things that we can just email people certificates to and things like that, so that there's not a whole lot of back and forth with the staff handing people items. And it's worked out pretty well for us. I think mostly because everyone has been very comfortable and responsive to the small number. Again, it's 75 people, and people are fine with just buying a full table. And I think 6 people, a table is like 6 or 8 people. So it's a very small number, and people are just buying a full table and then filling it with their friends and family that they have been socially distancing with themselves. So their neighbors and their family. And so that's worked out well in our favor. But I'll be honest, it's a lot on the staff. It's a lot on the staff to put together. It's a lot of stress on the staff and security to be open later for this. It's a lot on us to have. We had to buy sanitization stations, these like fancy things with sanitizer. We've got to kind of coordinate how far apart the tables are. We've got to get our linens there and then dry clean them for the next one. So we had to space them all out. So it's possible. It's just a matter of if you have the bandwidth to do it, and if you have the staff that is willing to come on site to do it. So normally at our dinner auctions, we have volunteers, but we can't ask volunteers to put themselves in harm's way for that. So, yeah.
Thanks, Megan.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting, and Brian's also shared a little bit about doing a virtual fundraiser at Stowe and a small cultivation event, which was in invitation only. So, Samantha, if you're planning something, you know, maybe you have some other people here that you can reach out to for some advice after the fact as well. Well, aware of the time, we're getting close to 1 o'clock. And I just want to take a moment before we part ways to thank Briann and David and Laurie for sharing their experiences. And also thank you to everyone who is here today and who's been willing to share a bit about what they're doing, to ask the questions. Our aim with these colleague circles is to really make them useful to you and help you make those connections that can be difficult and challenging, especially at this time of social distancing. So I hope that you've been able to learn a little bit today and think a little bit creatively about what you might be able to do at your own site and make some connections with other people. I want to thank you for being here. I'm going to stop the recording in just a moment. And if anyone has any additional questions, you know, I think our panelists will be happy to include their contact information in the chat if you want to follow up with them later. I'll also add, if you have any suggestions for topics for colleague circles coming up this fall, please let us know. You can shoot me an email at director@clho.org or throw something in the chat before you leave if you've got a burning topic on your mind. We like to make these responsive to you and your needs. So we're always happy to hear your ideas for colleague circles. Thanks for being with us today and have a wonderful weekend.